Hello everyone, this is Zach, and this is a video commentary for our Philly Game Jam game submission entitled Winston's Eggventure. So, for those of you unfamiliar, the Philly Game Jam is a 48-hour competition where teams sit in a convention center and they have 48 hours to make a game. They are given a topic on the first day, and then 48 hours later they are expected to deliver a working full, well, maybe not full, but a working game in some way to be judged. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So now, what you're watching here is the first stage of the game, what we like to call egg drop. Now your mother has given birth to you in mid-flight, and you have to find your way down this tree safely. So these thick branches are kind of dangerous because they're thick branches and you're an egg. So what you have to do is you have to guide your egg using the left and right arrow keys onto these leaves, and they slow your fall by a minor amount. Now if you hit the branches, you will lose health based on how fast you're going, which is dictated by that speed meter below the health bar. You also go extremely slowly while you hit the branches to prevent you from accelerating out of control or making the game impossibly difficult. And now it is still somewhat difficult. I admit to having lost quite a few times when I first started playing it. But after playtesting it over and over again, I think I've gotten fairly used to how the game controls. So a couple things to note is that the game was done all in Unity, and all of the art and script assets were mostly completed from scratch during the competition, including these wonderful intro scenes to each level. So this level is a basic sphere collider on a 2D axis. You control it with some floaty controls with the left and right arrow keys. And that's about it. There's not really much to this phase of the game, which this was the easiest phase to do, and we had it completed fairly shortly. Now there are still a couple bugs, like as you saw when I hit the side of the screen, my egg started tumbling a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this phase of the game so we can transition into the next one. As you'll see, I lost a little bit of health when we hit the bottom. That was intended because it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, once you hit the bottom, your egg cracks a little bit, and you grow legs, arms, wings, and you can now jump and fly a little bit. So now it turns into a 2D platformer. So the first thing you'll probably note is the very strange camera angle. We originally had just a standard old, front-facing camera angle, but we decided on this one actually after a glitch with our original camera. We thought it looked pretty cool and a little different. I'm actually having a little bit of a issue with our jump. There we go. So yeah, it's still a little bit buggy. I mean, it was a 48-hour game, but anyway, so I'm going to back up for a sec here. So one thing to note about this level are the lava, or the volcanoes. So the volcanoes are a timed particle effect that they turn on for a period of time and then they turn off. So notice how the lava isn't always in the way while it's turned on. This was a little bit of a programming challenge for me and Tucker to overcome. What we ended up having to do was actually come up with a very strict time limit for the box collider that detects when you are hit by the lava. It's offset by a little bit from when the volcano particle effect goes off, so that you're not taking damage while there's no volcano or while there's no lava in your way. Another one of the neat obstacles in this level is the geyser. It's not really an obstacle as much as it is a helper. So this was a little under-implemented. I wish we could have done a little bit more with it, but basically what you do, you stand on top of it and wait, and then it propels you up in the air. Now what I would have liked to do is have like a kind of a gravity lift effect, where if you jump into it while the water stream's there, it carries you upwards, but we didn't have time to implement that. And we actually noticed that a lot of playtesters expected that kind of behavior with it. When they were judging the game, a lot of people would step onto the geyser and then jump, expecting it to carry them in midair, which doesn't quite happen. And then, of course, there are the T-Rexes. They're just a very, very basic AI. They just walk back and forth. You have a punching attack that you can use where you lunge forward and punch, and anything in your way gets killed. The T-Rexes have a dying animation, but I didn't want to backtrack and show it to you because we forgot to turn off their damage capabilities while they were dying. So let's go ahead and finish this level. It's a pretty standard platformer. Again, there's a lot of stuff I wish we could have done, but we didn't really have much time. I want to give credit to the art team, though, because considering how little time we had, these levels look amazing. Especially considering that all of the art was done on site. So there's no level ending thing, it just kind of ends. I wish we could have done a little bit more with that too. So after you beat this level, your mouth pops out of the front of your shell, and it becomes a flying shoot 'em up segment where you can shoot little fireballs to take out the pterodactyls. Now, this is the most impressive segment in my opinion because we did this in a little under 2 hours. We had the art assets, but Tucker and I banged through the coding for it with a little bit of help from our other teammate Jared, who was working on this segment pretty much the entire time. So I'm going to kill myself so I can talk a little bit more. So the fireballs are pretty standard. Basically you just create one in front of you and then add a velocity to it. The pterodactyls are also pretty standard. They just fly towards you the entire time. And then you are bound to this axis and you're bound to the camera's view. Like, you can't go above here. Now this took a little bit of hacking to get to work because the way we did it was we put a couple of box colliders here and here. And what we found was that when we were colliding with those colliders, it was pushing our guy to the left or right. And that was very unwanted behavior because now we weren't bound to this one spot. So what we ended up doing was every frame we calculated the distance between our... So at the beginning of the game, we calculate the distance between the camera and our player. And then... Oh, I didn't want to show this off yet. Oh well. Anyways, so we calculate the distance between our camera and our player at the very start of this level. And then every frame, we check the distance between them currently, and if it changes, we set it back to what it was originally supposed to be. So, now that we've gotten there, we can show off the boss fight, which isn't really much of a boss fight. Again, I wish we could have implemented a little bit more with it, but whatever. So, the T-Rex is just a T-Rex, and there isn't really any strategy to this boss fight. You just have to fire as quickly as you can, and as many times as you can, and then he dies. And that's pretty much it. Again, I really wish we could have implemented a little bit more with it, but I mean, it won a lot of people's opinions of the game because, you know, they got through all three of these levels. It's like, okay, that was pretty cool, and then, you know, here comes this T-Rex, and he looks really cool. So, a couple things to note. Well, not really things to note, but other ideas we had. So originally, the idea was that as Winston, like, you would start out as this egg and you would just roll around and you could jump. And then as you took damage from obstacles, your shell would break and you would gain more powers as you were weaker. Kind of like a reverse Ghosts and Goblins kind of thing. But we decided against that and just to have these three separate levels. So the original idea, which I thought was a pretty cool idea, but I think it would have been a little bit tough to implement and design levels around, was that so you start out as an egg, and then when you take damage, your shell breaks, and you become the leg egg, I guess. And then you can jump, and then you take more damage, and now you have wings, and you can fly a little bit. And then after you take your final bit of damage, your entire shell comes out, and you become the baby dinosaur itself, wings, legs, and fire breathing, running around a platforming level. And so we thought that would have been cool, but designing levels around that would have been somewhat challenging, and we didn't really think we had the time to do that. So anyway, that's our game, and this is commentary describing the game, and I guess that's it.